was some funny business going on.
Mm-hmm.
We are recording and ready for you.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Better wait till after the meeting to thank me.
Oh.
No big deal. Where's my?
What?
This is what I need. Was that from last meeting?
Agenda's on the front of this.
Call meeting to order. Roll call.
Leaders,
Here.
Dietrich,
Here.
Van.
Here.
Flagman.
Here.
And Moore. Here. Let the record show that Mr. Larson is absent.
Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
One second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Where's that stick? I'll now read the statement for the open meeting. The public meetings will be conducted pursuant to the Commission's rules of procedure. If not done so in writing form prior to the hearing, we will first hear the report of the planning director on the detailed information and observations regarding the request before the Commission. Next, we will take the testimony of the applicant and his or her witnesses. Upon completion of the applicant's testimony, I will call upon members of the audience wishing to be heard concerning the request. Persons in favor of the request shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to it. At any time during the presentation of testimony, the members of the Commission may interrupt to ask questions or to make comments on what has been said. Upon completion of all testimony, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to the Commission. Upon completion of the applicant's closing statement, I will entertain a motion for the Commission to close the public hearing on the request. The Commission reserves the right to ask questions of any member of the audience. However, we will not hear any unsolicited statements unless the public hearing is first reopened. Each speaker addressing the Commission shall step forward to the podium and state their name and address before proceeding with their testimony or evidence. This Commission shall not be bound by strict rules of evidence, but does reserve the right to exclude evidence or testimony it may deem to be irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or unduly repetitious. As chairman, I will rule on all questions relating to the admissibility of evidence, which may be overruled by a majority of the Commission. Continuances may be granted by the Commission in case of good cause shown to any interested party who has entered their appearance. The Commission may request a continuance of a hearing for the purpose of giving further notice, taking further evidence, gathering further information, touring the proposed site, or for such other reasons as the Commission may find sufficient. In such case, we shall state the specific reasons for the continuance and set a date, time, and place when the matter will be continued. All official actions of this Commission will be made at a public meeting by motion, made, seconded, and a polling of the membership. If conditions are imposed, such conditions shall be included in the motion or amendment thereto. Our final decision will be prepared in writing and will be part of the public record of this Commission. With no public present, we'd entertain a meeting, or a motion for closing the meeting, correct?
To open it.
Open.
Right. I move to open a public hearing on case number ZTA 2015-2.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I've done a PowerPoint presentation here of all, not all inclusive of the changes, but the majority, 90% of the changes we'll kind of go through here. And I set out the slide paperwork there for you all too. The first thing that we looked at, kind of going through the Chapter 8 zoning ordinance, was to just do all the typographical and grammar errors that we found. We did the best we could. Of course, going through that, it's a large document and you always wind up with one or two. We replaced all of the references to the planning director, just a title change to the development director, and that's to fall in line with our Chapter 10 building codes that we have. Try to keep, and it goes with our Chapter 9 as well, the subdivision ordinance. We recodified various sections and subsections. When we say that, what it basically means is if you change one number in a code, that has several consequences after that. So anytime we change something in a section, we had to go back through that entire section and go back to 0.01, 0.02, or A, B, C, and D. We replaced all the references to a zoning permit and certificate of zoning compliance with a building permit and certificate of occupancies. That is, again, falls in line with our building code, and we don't issue many zoning permits anymore. And the ones that we do issue were for like signs and small decks, but even that we've gone now to building code. Building permits get issued for your decks if they're less than 30 inches off the ground, and we have signs. We recodified all the definitions in Chapter 8. This one here kind of shows you where we modified a definition, added a definition, or deleted a definition. And I tried to keep this same color combination for this presentation as we go along. If you see anything in red, that is an addition to the code. Anything in blue is deleted from it. Green, modified. So some of the definitions like illustration, reference agencies, accessory dwelling units, animal units, basement we just modified, bed and breakfast we modified, extraction pits we added. We added the definitions for major and minor subdivision, which we did not have in it before. We always reference to Chapter 9 to get those definitions before, and this will just bring it in for us. And we added the definition of an outlot in there, which we also did in Chapter 9, which will help out in any new subdivisions that are coming in. We have a few lots out there. Like an example would be Trace View down on Pioneer Trail. We had two lots there that were right up against Pioneer Trail. One lot ended up getting a house built on it. The other lot has not had a home built on it yet. But really, when you look at those lots, they should have been outlots and not really buildable, because the one person who has built a house on there is constantly wanting to do more and encroach on the boundaries of the setbacks, which the Board of Adjustments already said they won't allow. And so it just kind of, really it was a watershed area and should have stayed a watershed area. So this having outlots will be nice. Permanent foundation was modified or come in line with our building codes. Roadside stand modified. We deleted the centometer device. I never actually used a centimeter device, and it was kind of a funny thing to have in there. But the freestanding business identification sign we added. Hard surface street we modified. Non-commercial vehicle and equipment sales and yard sales we added. Those are two things that in the last few years have kind of become a deal to where everybody wants to set 3 or 4 cars on their front yard up for sale, and maybe they have one car and then a couple farm attachments and things like that they want to set up there. And then the yard sales was we were starting to see a lot of perpetual yard sales. They just never ended. Every weekend the garage doors came up and there was a garage sale going on, so we'd start getting some complaints. So we thought we should have it defined out in there to help us with our enforcement. We completely deleted out the reference to, planned mixed-use development area, I-3. We deleted the I-3 section from the zoning code. That was a section that, Kay said, there was a gentleman who came in, just involved, where Camp Hitchcock's at now, and wanting to do the landfill and things like that at that time up there. And so that was kind of written in there for that. We don't have any I-3 areas, so we thought it was just best just to come out of there. We added the reference to a slope protection district, which we'll kind of go over in more detail a little bit later. And then amended to provide for electronic zoning maps, which is basically kind of what we've gone to in the county using as our electric map. This slide you won't find in your handout. I threw it in later when I was reviewing it today, because I wanted to point this section out, was for the definition of our animal units. The code used to be to where you could have one animal and its immature offspring, is the way it was described, per acre, and then that by your acreages would determine how many horses or chickens or anything that you could have out there. So the same person who could have 2 horses could really only have 2 chickens by the way our code was written. It didn't differentiate between the animals. It was just all on one. So we took from the Iowa DNR their animal unit scale, and this is the way that we will be able to determine out for those people with acreages how many animals they could have out there now, rather than saying per acre, rather than saying, one animal and its immature offspring. Now it just says 1 animal unit per acre of pasture. So that'll definitely, with we kind of call it our chicken controversy, because we had some people getting chickens on lots that you could not even have any animals on as far as we were concerned with our zoning ordinance.
I've got a question about that. I've got an acreage, about 10 acres.
Mhm.
I've got swine facilities, and I was gonna sell the acreage. So they're limited by this.
When you say do you mean like a feeder, like a feeding operation?
Well, it's fair to finish. Now, the guys that are interested, they might have 25 hogs, and then they might have 6 months later.
See,
It's not a big operation.
if it gets to the point to where you're selling them and that you're making money off it, like a feeder operation like that, then you're ag exempt, and our codes don't apply to you. The zoning code does not apply to you. So that's how you'll see some of the farming operations to where they have their feed lots on, one parcel or whatever, and massive amounts of animals out there. Well, that all comes to the DNR. It doesn't come through us on what you could do out there.
Okay.
But if it's 5-acre place and, we get this live 5-acre place and they have 6 or 7 horses out there, then that's, 4 too many horses for them to have on that spot. Because they don't have, usually when we come up across them, it's because they don't have any way to get rid of manure on that small part on that small 5 acres compared to the farmer who has ground then to go take care of the manure.
Yeah.
That's usually when the complaints start rolling in. We deleted the reference to multifamily dwellings. We don't have a zoning district that allows for multifamily dwellings, and so that was something that had been kind of left over in there that needed to come out. We took out the accessory use. We used to have the accessory uses listed under each zoning district. If you were A1 or A2 or A4, it had, your principal uses, accessory uses listed in all those. We took out all those accessory uses from the Class A districts, R1, R2, and R3, and we just put them into the general district regulations, just to help simplify it. And then so under each zoning district, it'll say accessory uses as allowed back to this section. And that lists out all the accessory uses for that district instead of having them listed in each one, and just to kind of shorten out district a little bit. We added the criteria for accessory dwelling units, and we'll go over that one a little bit more in depth. We amended the references to projections, canopies, eaves, and wing walls from 2.5 feet to 3 feet. Simplify the map a little bit. Allowing for ramps for access for disabled people. We did have situations where in some areas it was tough to make it to where they could have that protrusion out into the setback district to allow for a ramp to get up into their homes. We added standards for the parking recreational vehicles in our districts or platted subdivisions. We deleted the references to the objectionable odors and performance standards. We amended the bed and breakfast from 2 bedrooms to 4. Was the change. We deleted all the grading and excavating criteria. That is going to be on December 1st. I go to the Board of Supervisors with an amendment to Chapter 10 with a whole section on grading and excavating and permitting. So we're not going to have that in our zoning ordinance anymore. And we had, there were some changes came through on the state level on the placement of towers and antennas. So we made those amendments to ours, where they don't have to provide us written evidence, and on co-location, we can't ask them if they consider co-location first anymore. If they come in and want a tower, we just have to make sure it fits and go with it. So the state wanted standards set all across the state to be the same, and the cell companies were pretty heavy on that. And we deleted the requirements for designing towers for future antennas, and that they had to provide yearly inspection reports to us. So accessory dwelling units. This had been a hot topic for quite a while now. Everybody wanting to do an accessory house, whether it's for their grandparents or their kids or whatever it is. So we thought we would get ahead of it and come up with standards for them. So the size of the parcel that we're gonna allow ADUs on has to be 2 times larger than the minimum lot size in that zoning district. Most zoning districts are 2 acres. So there would be a 4-acre lot before you can have an accessory dwelling unit. When we go to look at issuing the permits for them to do, if they're gonna do their own septic on that ADU, they can't shut out any neighboring property owners from any setbacks that they would need for their well or septics on those properties. We don't want it to impact those properties. They can be a maximum square footage of 600 square feet or 50% of the square footage of the primary structure, excluding the garages and carports, but it can't be less than 260 square feet, and that's by the building code. That's your minimum habitable structure would be 260 square feet.
Yeah, it's not very big.
I know these ones are they're pretty small.
Where did you come up with the square footage and the lot size? Is that?
We kind of did an all across the country search
Okay.
to see how everybody else handled their ADUs. And this was kind of it seemed to be the trend on how they did them, to make sure that you didn't wind up with 2 principal structures on there. We try to keep them about half the size of your average house.
600 just doesn't seem very big.
It's just, it'd be about a 2-car garage converted into a house, but you're really only wanting to be 1 bedroom. So it's 1 bedroom, a bathroom, kitchen area, and a living room.
I know, but if you're having your mother-in-law come and live on your property, you want her to be happy, right? You're gonna give her 600 feet, she's gonna be in your house all the time.
Well,
Thinking about these poor people that are trying to help out here.
You get kind of worried about, if you have those 2 big mansions out there on a 4-acre lot. then when they go to sell them, people wanna split them off, try to sell two different houses separate.
I've been there. I know all about it.
The ADUs will comply with the limitations of section 8.004.040 of the lot frontage requirement. And the exterior finish materials, we want them to match, we want the ADUs have to be the same construction type of the principal house. So you're not gonna have a, stick-built house out there and then move in a small modular house and think that that would work for your ADU. The construction and stuff is gonna have to be similar to the principal structure of it. And they have to have at least one parking spot. To get on, there not gonna be any new cuts to the roadways. It's gonna have to use the same entrance as what's existing for the principal structure. That was a concern that had been shared from some of the other places that we had looked at. You can only have one ADU. It's not gonna have, if you have 20 acres out there, you can't have 4 of them.
What if you have two mother-in-laws?
It is a problem. They can share a room.
All 600 feet.
600 square feet.
600 square foot.
The ADUs can't be used as a bed and breakfast. And the ADUs are only gonna be permitted when one of the dwelling units, either primary or the ADU, is owner occupied. The ownership can't be fractional, and in the event that it does become a rental property, it's gonna have to be rented for a minimum of 30 days at a time, not on a weekly basis or a daily rental, and that's to kind of back up the not becoming an ADU. And the ADU can only be divided off onto a separate lot or parcel if it meets all the zoning requirements. So if it can be divided off, we want them divided off. We'd rather have them on two separate pieces but if they meet the standards and they can't be divided off, then that's where it'd be at. But there was a lot of situations that we didn't want that were described out to us of people keep trying to sell the ADU separate from their other house that they get into or a new owner comes in and maybe they don't want it. That's what we tried to keep from happening. This was kind of another big one that's gone around.
Can I ask something? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. On the ADU, it has to be in the rear yard? Or is that just
No, I just threw a picture on there.
Okay,
As long as, it just has to meet the setbacks. They can be side by side.
Okay.
Or if say the principal house is set way back.
okay,
But they can't be considered, we do have in there that they cannot be considered an accessory building for setback purposes. And that's because in our setbacks, if you build an accessory building and you get behind, in most zoning districts, if you get behind the back line of the primary principal structure, then you can be as close as 4 feet to your sideline and 4 feet to your rear line. That does not apply for an ADU. You always have to have the 50-foot rear yard, 25-foot side yard. So that way you're not, looking right out your window at somebody else's place.
An accessory building is machine shed.
Yeah, it'd be your garage, pole barn, shed.
That would work for me.
Can't do that. We already know we have several of those out there, and we come across them with the time and transfer septic program has kind of uncovered a lot of them that are out there. So we end up working with people then to tear out those living quarters that have been in there for a number of years, because that's what they did. But so the parking of recreational vehicles and vessels in the R districts are subject to the additional regulations. We had in there, where zoning ordinance was in few of these subdivisions, was you had to have them in your rear yard behind a side obscuring fence. So we would get complaints on these that they were out there and that the fence wasn't side obscuring. Well, a 6-foot fence doesn't obscure a 12-foot camper. And it's never gonna, and you can't So we took out the 6-foot side obscuring fence. And we made it to where you can park them in the required front yard setback as long as they're on a hard surface driveway or hard surface pad. If space is not available in the side yard behind the required front yard, or there is no reasonable access to either side yard or rear yard, a lot shall be deemed to have reasonable access to the rear yard if terrain permits, and access that can be had without substantial damage to large trees, major landscaping events shall not be deemed to prevent reasonable access. The vehicle is parked perpendicular to the curb. The vehicle may not extend over public sidewalk or public right-of-way. If it's filled with petroleum gas containers, those containers have to meet all the fire safety codes. All the valves should be closed at times when the vehicle is not being ready for immediate use. The vehicle cannot be occupied for living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes, except that when non-paying guests at a residence may occupy one vehicle parked or stored consistent with regulations of this chapter for sleeping purposes only for a period not exceeding 72 hours and not more than 14 days in any calendar year. We know that there's a lot of people that come up, parents, whatever, stop by their house to visit, and they set up their camper and they stay there for a couple of days. We just don't want them setting up shop there for longer than 3 days at a time or more than 14 days in a year. And that is all just, it just helps with tools for our enforcement. Because, you know, we don't go out looking for them, but when we get the complaints of, hey, these people pull up a camper, and that was a month ago, and they're still sitting out there.
Sounds like we're gonna be a county where we really don't want our relatives coming and visiting very long.
No, because we're allowing you to have guest houses now.
We don't want them to be very happy. Make them stay in 600 square foot.
But it can be a really nice 600 square foot.
There you go.
On the lakefront, that's really nice.
This is true.
And we do get a lot of requests these days about tiny houses.
I think it's the new thing. Smaller houses.
It is. Open Space and Conservation District, A1, conditional uses, we added forests and production of woodland products, including sawmills and cutting of timber grown on site. In the A2 conditional use, we amended the commercial stables and riding academies and clubs to delete the reference of animals per acre, because that was written the same way we talked about with the one animal and its immature offspring per acre. So we took that out. We added in extraction pits, and we deleted mines, quarries, sand, gravel pits, and placement of criteria for portable sawmills, and we added in helipads. On the riverfront and ag production district, A3 conditional uses, we added extraction pits, and we added racetracks, strips, trails used for the racing of horses, automobiles, and motorcycles. So you can come to the county and have some fun. In the A4, R1, R2, and R3 districts, principal uses, we added platted major subdivisions on hard surface streets within 2 miles of Council Bluffs and a half mile within other municipalities, and to amend the platted minor subdivisions on hard surface streets as a principal use. And that kind of goes along with our land use plan that we just did recently. In the A4 district, now that's our Les Hills district. It had always been locked out for commercial activities. And so we'd always gotten a lot of requests and thought with the hills and the hard surface, the highway that we have running up through there, why not make it to where we can have some commercial activities up in that area. So we listed out the commercial activities that we thought went along with the scenic byway. It was just antique and used furniture shops, art shops and galleries, bakeries, bicycle stores, sales, repair and rental, indoor recreational activities, book, flower, gift shops, health clubs and gymnasiums, miniature golf, museums, offices, business and professional, restaurants with a bar, lounge, tavern that doesn't occupy more than 25% of the total floor area, outdoor recreational complexes, excluding off-highway vehicle parks. I want to keep that down on the river bottom area and not up into the hills.
No SOBs?
Not yet.
Okay.
In the A4 and R1 districts, we're going to delete the reference to number of animals per acres and commercial stables, riding academy, and clubs. A4, we're going to add, and this was always allowed, but we thought it needed to be in there to be defined out as to add in demolition, rubble, waste disposal sites for erosion stabilization. You could always do that. We would always let you do that in the past, but it was just never in here. And rubble dumps are a big, some people would see them and, their neighbors would just completely freak out because they thought that it was just going to turn into this huge, massive thing. But if it's done in the proper way to stabilize your driveway or whatever you need done with it, then that's what we're looking for. R1 and R2, conditional use, bed and breakfast. And then in R5, we deleted out the multifamily dwellings. C1 and 2 district, stipulate the property should be located, have direct access to hard surface streets. We added outdoor advertising signs and private parking. And we added secondary airports, private landing strips, and helipads. In the C3 district conditional uses, we deleted out employee living quarters, racetracks, strips, trails for horse racing automobiles, but we added helipads. I1 and I2 districts. We're going to stipulate the properties generally are located along railroad lines and other major transportation corridors in addition to major streets and highways. And again, we deleted out completely the I3 district, planned mixed-use development district. All the other I districts can handle the uses that were in there. The slope protection overlay district, this was an addition. The intent of the slope protection overlay district is intended to establish criteria for disturbing the natural earth surface to limit the process of erosion and protect groundwater, promote safe locations to building, provide safe and reasonable routes for emergency vehicles, protect sensitive natural features, and to preserve the fragile and scenic qualities of the Loess Hills. The protection zone is all lands located in an area where the surface of the land has a 30% to 75% slope or greater. And so basically we're talking about the face of the Loess Hills. No extraction pits shall be prohibited. No more than 1,000 cubic feet of earth shall be disturbed within a 12-month period. a grading permit as required in chapter 10.15 grading and excavation code shall be obtained. The impact zone, all lands located in an area where the surface of the land has a 0 to 30% slope shall be subject to the following. Extraction permits are permitted except in class A1, A4, R2, R3, and R5 districts, and grading permits are required. Then when we get to our signs, we had a lot of people, a lot of businesses coming in about our signs, saying that our signs were our code section in the zoning code was too restrictive on their signs. So they came in, we had two different companies come in and applied for variances. Both those variances were denied. And we researched out again across the state and even a little bit further than that, and found that our sign code is really pretty lenient. Both the companies wanted to do a bigger sign out by the road. And so what we did with our sign code was change it to where you can have 400 square feet of signage. And it used to we would specifically say in there where you could have this much signage for this type of sign, this much signage for that type of sign. We're saying you can have 400 square feet of signage. The maximum height we left alone at 45 feet in the districts that they were talking about. But if they want to go and throw a 400 square foot sign up there on there, you're fine, you can go ahead and do that, but then you're not going to have any signage on your building. Because you get 400 square feet of signage. And hopefully that will settle some of them things that they want to do. But they were wanting 1,200 square foot signs and 600 square foot signs. And
That's 200 on each side, or one that faces.
It'd be 400 on each side.
Pardon?
It'd be 400 on each side. And we feel like that's pretty, compared to what all the other jurisdictions are doing. We're still kind of right there in the middle ground. We're not real stringent, but we're not real lenient either.
That's a 20 by, good size sign,
Yeah,
20 by 20.
but there a lot of the one that kind of, when you go by Love's up there, everybody thinks that that's out there in the county, there at Shelby, or like, the reason why they have the signs that they do out there and as tall as they are is because they're inside city limits, they don't have any codes, so they can put, do whatever they want to do, but. We're gonna require the grading permit application be submitted when the application for a building permit gets submitted. Deleted the various sections relating to zoning permit, action by development director, expiration of zoning permit and certificate. We added in sections on certificate of occupancies. For the Board of Adjustment, we had, when we noticed this when we were at one of the meetings there, it used to say the amendment to the text of this ordinance, a notice of publication, public hearing shall be given. And it really shouldn't, so we took out the amendment to the text of this ordinance and just left it at a notice of public hearing shall be given. And that was just a cleanup part that was done in there. For the last part of this chapter 9, since we're doing this in the chapter 8, we needed to change the definition in chapter 9 as well to a public street hard surface, a street which has full depth surfacing, and this was when it was either had to be concrete or asphalt. And that was what we considered our hard surface. Now it's a street which has full depth surfacing consisting of concrete or asphalt with a structural capacity equivalency of concrete, constructed in accordance with appropriate local, county or state regulations for a street that its surfacing has been prepared and treated with a bituminous coating and designed by the county and designated by the county board in a resolution as an official bituminous road. And that's where the seal coat roads that we see, they started doing them deeper. And so as the county engineer's office lets us know that we've redone this one and we feel comfortable with it, we will add that on to the resolution for the Board of Supervisors to deem it an official bituminous road. And then that will allow them to do their minor subdivisions out there. Major ones are all pushed closer to town, but then those other ones are further out. That's the end of my presentation. Hopefully I didn't go too fast through it. I don't know if you guys have.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What is a certificate of occupancy?
When you get a building permit, since 2007 in the county, when you get a building permit, whether it be for your pole barn or for a new house, once you do your final inspection of it, and our inspectors go through and sign off on everything, we issue either a certificate of occupancy, allowing you to move into the home and occupy it, or a certificate of completion for your buildings, and it'll allow you to occupy your buildings. Until those are issued, we still have you on a temporary power hookup, and we can call them in at any time and tell them to turn the power off on that place.
It doesn't have like how many people can live there.
Not in a residential aspect of it. In the commercial side of it, they do. Now, the commercial side of it will tell you, what your occupancy rating is, how many people you're allowed to have in the building, and all the fire provisions that go along with it. And we issue those as well.
My question goes, I heard that over in Omaha, they was gonna start limiting how many, somehow they were gonna try to address the issue, how many people were living, how many families were living in the same house.
Oh. There are some provisions to that in the property maintenance code, I believe, but.
Council Bluffs has, Council Bluffs has so many people per square foot or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say. That sounds like the way it was written in the property maintenance code. It's kind of like a per square
Yeah.
footage.
It's there, I know, because I had, a few years back, I used it because I had an apartment, they wanted to move so many people in there, and I was like, can't,
I
doesn't
think
fall
it's
under the city code.
I think it's like, I wanna say the property maintenance code, it's 70 square foot per person.
Yeah, there's a minimum amount per person, so.
Sounds like a life.
There's gotta be some awful big apartments in Omaha where the Hispanics.
I think there's a few more people than 70, one person per 70 square.
In some of those it is.
So what do you need us to do? You need us to,
If you all are okay with,
We need to
with any of this, then,
finish the public hearing, right? Because we're still in public hearing, I believe,
yeah,
before we can do anything else.
you close the public hearing and then make a recommendation on it.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
I got one more
Oh.
question,
Okay.
almost forgot. Do we allow to have, does this company allow to have indoor shooting ranges?
We do. We actually had the DNR was, we went through 3 or 4 different meetings because the DNR had a bunch of money and they were gonna put us in a big shooting range over here. And then, but they can't find a place to put it. The place that they wanted to put it was too close to, rail lines and the power plant and, Google down south of town. And so they're, I believe, still have the money, just looking for a place to put it.
No, and in here where you were gonna open up some of the Lost Hills for commercial,
Mm-hmm.
would that be allowed in there?
Um,
And I'm talking about a building, I'm not talking about an open environment.
Yeah, you're talking about on the inside. And I think that would have to be determined if it fell within the indoor recreational activities.
I had checked into one of those.
Well, now the,
Recreational
For a
indoor.
client, and you have to have
well, now the shooting range that's down
tables in and out.
by Bellevue exit now, when that was built, that was,
Restrictions at the time, or.
was that still county or was that annexed by then?
I mean, there had to be a
It's still
paved
county.
parking lot and.
Okay, that's why I couldn't remember if that was,
paved Street.
They
in
couldn't
and
get the
out.
landowner with the horses right next door.
I just,
To
over
sell
at
to
Messina,
them, otherwise you
John
would
Deere
right now
dealer
have a
sold
pretty
out
massive shooting
to a
range
bigger
down
one.
there.
he went build a shooting range right up the street.
cause there, I mean, there is a indoor shooting range. I mean, it's not public, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
private, it's for,
Crazy. We do need one here.
oh, that'd be great.
I just kinda wonder.
It would
That's a good question.
fall within the realm.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So now you need a motion to approve these changes.
Yes.
So is this a,
Could recommend either way.
I move that we recommend approval of the proposed changes under case ZTA 2015-02.
I'll
Second.
second.
It's been moved and seconded that we,
Did you want to discuss?
yeah, I just, one question before we vote. Is this, okay, so is this our final for this group and then it goes to the Board of Supervisors, or do we have another hearing?
This is the final for you
It's
guys.
final for us,
It goes to
okay.
the board, recommend approval tonight. I will take it to the Board of Supervisors on December 1st, along with the changes to Chapter 10.
Okay, that's fine, I didn't know, because I know in the Board of Supervisors, I think it goes, is it 2 or 3 times?
2 times.
2 times, okay. So I didn't know if it was the same for us, but apparently this is it. Okay.
I second.
it's been moved and seconded that we forward this to the Board of Supervisors, recommend approval of it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I don't have any other business for you tonight.
Got any food?
I should have made this
Oh.
a holiday party.
I know.
Yeah, meeting is adjourned.
We have
I give you a
to
motion.
Oh,
vote on adjourning the meeting.
Oh. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Meeting is adjourned.